The Korthak fleet retreated in complete disorder. Ships that had once moved with perfect coordination now fled in panic. The death of the Bio-Titan had broken something fundamental in their war machine. For the first time in their empire's history, they had been truly defeated. Korthmak floated in his damaged command chamber, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. Half his fleet was gone. His ultimate weapon was dead, and these humans had done it all to save aliens they had known for only a few years. Lord Korthmak, his second-in-command Yethmor approached carefully. The fleet requests permission to withdraw from this system. Granted, Korthmak replied quietly, but send a message to the Empire. Tell them we have encountered something new in this galaxy. A species that fights not for conquest but for friendship. They are more dangerous than anything we have ever faced. As the surviving Korthak ships limped away into hyperspace, the human fleet regrouped around Ethros Prime. The beautiful blue-green world was safe, but the cost had been terrible. Over half the human fleet was destroyed or badly damaged. Admiral Tae-min stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the debris field, where so many good people had died. Captain Jin Ho, Supply Officer Wu Jin, thousands of fighter pilots. They had given their lives so that the Veltari could continue to exist. Admiral, Communications Officer Hyunwoo reported, "I'm receiving a transmission from Prime Counselor Velnara." "Put her through," Taemin ordered. Velnara appeared on the main screen, but she looked different than before. Her crystalline features now glowed with a light that humans had never seen. It was hope mixed with gratitude and something deeper. "Admiral." "Taemin," she began, her voice shaking with emotion. "I do not have words in any language to express what you have done for us. You came across the galaxy to save people you barely knew. You fought an empire that had never been defeated. And you won." Taemin felt the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. "We lost many good people, Counselor. Captain Jin Ho, Supply Officer Wu Jin, fighter pilots Namsu and Hee-won." He paused, thinking of all the humans who would never see Earth again. "They will be remembered," Velnara said solemnly. "On every world of the Veltari Collective there will be monuments to the humans who died to save us. Your friends will never be forgotten." Dr. Yoon-ji, who had survived the battle but lost many colleagues, spoke up from her station. "Counselor, what about the Korthaks? Will they return?" Velnara's expression darkened. "I do not believe so. We are monitoring their communications as they retreat. They speak of humans as something beyond their understanding. You have taught them fear." Over the next several hours, the surviving human ships worked with Veltari vessels to rescue survivors and begin cleanup operations. The space around Ethros Prime was filled with debris from both fleets, but also with something more important. It was filled with hope. Chief Engineer Min Kyung, working from a badly damaged repair ship, coordinated the recovery of human survivors. "We've got rescue signals from 17 more ships," she reported, including Commander Yejin's cruiser. "Commander, Yejin had survived the Bio-Titan's death throes, though her ship was barely holding together." "Reporting for duty, Admiral," she said when communications were restored. "My ship is scrap metal, but my crew is alive." "Good to hear your voice, Commander," Taemin replied with relief. "We thought we'd lost you too." Intelligence Officer Sang-hoon was monitoring communications across the galaxy when he detected something remarkable. "Admiral, you need to hear this. The story of what happened here is spreading faster than our ships could carry it." The galaxy was talking about the battle of Ethros Prime. Species that had never heard of humans were learning about the newcomers who had done the impossible. They had defeated the Korthak Empire through pure determination and willingness to sacrifice for others. "Sir," Hyunwoo reported, "I'm receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want to speak with you directly." The Galactic Council was the governing body of the major spacefaring civilizations. For years, they had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers who were not ready for real galactic citizenship. That was about to change. When Admiral Taemin accepted the call, he found himself facing representatives of dozens of alien species. Some looked like living plants, others like geometric shapes made of energy. All of them looked at him with new respect. "Admiral Taemin of the Terran Defense Force," spoke the council chairman. a being that looked like a walking crystal formation. The Galactic Council has been monitoring the events at Ethros Prime. We wish to formally recognize the actions of humanity in this conflict. Taemin was surprised. Council Chairman, we did what any decent species would do. We helped our friends. That is precisely the point, the chairman replied. In the 3,000 years of recorded galactic history, no species has ever deployed their entire military force to save another civilization without expecting anything in return. You have redefined what it means to be an ally. Dr. Yunji was analyzing biological samples from the destroyed Korthak ships when she made an important discovery. Admiral, I think I know why the Korthaks retreated so completely. We didn't just defeat their fleet, we broke their entire philosophy. She brought up her analysis on the main screen. The Korthaks see the universe as divided into hunters and prey. They've never encountered a species that hunts to protect others instead of to consume them. We're something outside their understanding of how life works. Prime Counselor Velnara contacted the human fleet again with important news. Admiral, I have been in communication with other species in this sector. 3 civilizations have requested human protection from Korthak attacks. Word of your victory is spreading hope across the galaxy. Over the following days, more requests for assistance arrived. The Zenthran Federation asked for human advisors to help them prepare defenses. The Crystal Collective wanted to learn human military tactics. Even species that had never been threatened by the Korthaks were interested in alliances with humanity. We've become the galaxy's protectors, Admiral Taemin observed to his staff. Whether we wanted to or not, Chief Engineer Min Kyung had been working with Veltari scientists to reverse engineer captured Korthak technology. Sir, the Veltari are offering to share their biomedical advances with us. Combined with Korthak biotechnology, we could revolutionize human medicine and engineering. The formal ceremonies took place on Ethros Prime itself. Admiral Taemin and the surviving human commanders were invited to the planet's surface to receive the highest honors the Veltari could bestow. The ceremony was held in the Crystal Gardens, a vast complex of living crystal formations that sang in harmony. Billions of Veltari attended, either in person or through bioneural links. They wanted to thank the humans who had saved their world. Today, Prime Counselor Velnara announced to the gathering, we honor the humans who traveled across the galaxy to answer our call for help. They came not as conquerors but as friends. They fought not for territory or resources but for the simple right of our people to exist. She turned to Admiral Taemin. Admiral, your species has shown us something we thought impossible. That, in a galaxy full of predators, there can still be protectors. That beings who evolved on a harsh world can choose to use their strength to defend the weak rather than consume them. The Veltari had prepared memorials for every human who had died in the battle. Captain Jinho's memorial was a living crystal formation that would grow for centuries, becoming more beautiful with time. Supply Officer Wu Jin's monument was a garden where Veltari children would learn about sacrifice and friendship. Commander Ye Jin, now promoted to Admiral to replace the losses, spoke for the human survivors. Our friends died so that your children could live to see tomorrow. In human culture, there is no greater honor than to die protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Dr. Yunji received special recognition for her biological weapons research, though she struggled with the ethical implications of her work. I created weapons of war, she said quietly to Admiral Taemin. But I used them to save lives. I hope that matters. It matters, Taemin assured her. Sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be better at war than those who would destroy. Isn't, as the ceremonies concluded, Intelligence Officer Sang-hoon brought important news. Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. The Korthak Empire is in full retreat. They're abandoning conquered systems and returning to their home territory. The defeat at Ethros Prime had done more than just save the Veltari. It had broken the Korthak expansion completely. For the first time in generations, the galaxy was free from their threat. Admiral Taemin recorded his final log entry of the campaign as the human fleet prepared to establish permanent joint bases. With the Veltari, personal log Admiral Taemin, Terran Defense Force, the Battle of Ethros Prime is over. We came here to save our friends, and we did. But we accomplished something more. We showed the galaxy that humanity will stand against any threat to protect those who cannot protect themselves. He paused, looking out at the beautiful blue-green world below. When the aliens called SOS, we deployed an Armada. We didn't just save the Veltari. We announced to the galaxy that humanity protects its friends. And now the galaxy knows. When Deathworlders make friends, we keep them. Korthmak floated in his command chamber, surrounded by organic displays that pulsed with angry red light. His fleet was dying. In 5 days of combat, these humans had destroyed more Korthak ships than any enemy in the Empire's history. Impossible, he hissed through his breathing apparatus. We are the apex predators of the galaxy. We have consumed 47 civilizations. His second-in-command, a creature called Yethmor, approached cautiously. Lord Korthmak, perhaps we should consider retreat. These humans fight unlike anything we have encountered. Korthmak's multiple eyes fixed on Yethmor with deadly intent. Retreat? The Korthak Empire does not retreat. We consume. We dominate. We do not run from prey. But Lord, they are not fighting like prey, Yethmor protested. They hunt us like we hunt others. Their tactics are disturbing. On the displays, another Korthak ship exploded as human fighters swarmed it like angry insects. The humans had perfected their pack-hunting techniques. They would isolate individual ships and destroy them before moving on to the next target. Enough, Korthmak roared. If conventional tactics will not work against these creatures, then we will use the final weapon. Yethmor's biological components went pale with fear. Lord, the Planet Eater. But that will destroy everything on Ethros Prime. The resources, the population, everything will be consumed. Exactly, Korthmak replied coldly. If we cannot have this world, then no one can. Deploy the Bio-Titan immediately. Deep in the Korthak fleet, something ancient and terrible began to wake up. The Bio-Titan was the ultimate weapon of the Korthak Empire. It was a living ship the size of a small moon, designed to consume entire planets. It had been growing for centuries, fed on the remains of conquered worlds. Admiral Taemin was coordinating another pack hunt when his sensors detected something massive moving in the enemy fleet. What is that? He demanded. Communications officer Hyunwoo was monitoring enemy transmissions when his face went white. Admiral, I'm picking up massive energy readings from the center of their formation. Whatever it is, it's huge. Dr. Yoonji was studying the sensor data when she realized what they were facing. Admiral, that's not a ship. It's a living creature, and it's heading directly for Ethros Prime. The Bio-Titan emerged from the Korthak fleet like a nightmare made real. It was organic in appearance, but covered with technological enhancements. Tentacles the size of city blocks writhed around its massive bulk. Mouths big enough to swallow capital ships opened and closed along its sides. Prime Counselor Velnara's transmission was filled with terror. Admiral Taemin, that creature, it consumes everything. Planets, stars, entire systems. If it reaches Ethros Prime, 8 billion of my people will die. Admiral Taemin studied the monster bearing down on the Veltari homeworld. It was protected by over 100 Korthak ships arranged in defensive formations. Getting close enough to attack it would be suicide. All ships, emergency conference, Taemin ordered. The fleet commanders appeared on his screens. Captain Jin Ho looked grim. Commander Yejin was calculating attack angles. Captain Do Hyun was checking his ammunition supplies. They all knew what had to be done. That thing will reach Ethros Prime in 6 hours, Taemin announced. We need to stop it. How? Asked Captain Do Hyun. It's bigger than anything we've ever fought. Our weapons might not even scratch it. Dr. Yoonji had been analyzing the creature's biology. The Bio-Titan is a living organism, which means it has vulnerabilities. If we can get inside it, we might be able to disrupt its nervous system. Get inside? Commander Ye-jin looked shocked. That's a suicide mission. Maybe, Admiral Taemin replied quietly. But 8 billion Veltari are counting on us. Captain Jin Ho was the first to volunteer. My destroyers are fast and expendable. We'll punch through their defensive screen and clear a path for the larger ships." "Negative," Taemin said firmly. "I need a different plan, something that uses our advantages against their strengths." Chief Engineer Min Kyung had an idea. "What if we don't try to fight through their defenses? What if we go around them?" She brought up a tactical display showing the Bio-Titan's approach to Ethros Prime. "The creature is following a predictable path. If we can get ships into position ahead of it—" "An ambush," Sang-Hoon realized. "We let it come to us instead of trying to reach it." Admiral Taemin studied the plan. It was dangerous, but it might work. "Do it. All ships, new formation. We're going to let that monster come to us." The human fleet scattered across the Bio-Titan's path. Ships hid among asteroids, behind debris fields, anywhere they could avoid detection. The Korthak escorts continued, their protective formation, unaware that they were flying into a trap. Namsu and Hyawan led their fighter squadrons to hidden positions near Ethros Prime's outer moon. Their job would be the most dangerous of all. They had to get close enough to the Bio-Titan to plant nuclear charges on its vital organs. "Remember," Namsu told his pilots, "we only get one shot at this. Make it count." Hyawan checked her weapons one final time. "If we don't come back, make sure they remember we died protecting our friends." Supply Officer Wu Jin had prepared something special for this battle. His cargo ships were loaded with every nuclear weapon the human fleet possessed. He would ram them directly into the Bio-Titan's mouth. "If that thing wants to eat something," Wu Jin muttered, "let's give it some indigestion." The Bio-Titan approached the ambush point with its escort fleet spread around it like a protective shell. Korthmak was confident that no enemy could threaten his ultimate weapon. He was wrong. Admiral Taemin waited until the perfect moment, then gave the order that would either save the Veltari or destroy his entire fleet. "All ships, attack." The space around the Bio-Titan exploded into chaos. Human ships emerged from every hiding place at once, firing everything they had at the creature and its escorts. The coordinated assault caught the Korthaks completely by surprise. Captain Jin Ho led his destroyers in a desperate charge directly at the escort fleet. "For the Veltari," he shouted as his ships opened fire. The destroyers were vastly outnumbered, but they fought with the fury of cornered animals. Jin Ho's ship, the Busan Thunder, took hit after hit, but kept firing. When Suyain, his weapons failed, he rammed his destroyer into a Korthak capital ship. "Jin Ho!" Commander Yejin screamed as she watched her friend's ship explode. "Stay focused," Admiral Taemin ordered, though his own heart was breaking. "He bought us time. Don't waste it." Commander Yejin led her cruisers in a flanking attack against the Bio-Titan's escorts. Her ships moved like dancers through space, weaving between enemy fire and striking at weak points. But the Korthaks were adapting to human tactics. "They're learning our moves," Yejin reported as her flagship took heavy damage. "We can't keep this up much longer." Captain Do-hyun's dreadnoughts opened fire on the Bio-Titan itself. The massive creature's hide was incredibly thick, but the concentrated firepower began to have an effect. Huge chunks of flesh were blown away, only to begin regenerating immediately. "It's healing faster than we can damage it," Do-hyun reported grimly. That was when the fighter squadrons made their move. Namsu and Hyawan led hundreds of small ships in a suicidal attack, run directly at the Bio-Titan's vital organs. They flew through clouds of defensive fire and swarms of Korthak biofighters. "Stay with your wingmen," Namsu shouted as fighters exploded around him. "We have to reach the brain." Hyawan's fighter was badly damaged, but she kept flying. "Target the neural clusters. Don't let this thing reach the planet." The fighters swarmed over the Bio-Titan like antibodies attacking a virus. They fired nuclear torpedoes into the creature's nerve centers and brain tissue. The massive organism began to convulse as its nervous system was disrupted. Supply Officer Wu Jin chose that moment to make his final attack. His cargo ships loaded with nuclear weapons flew directly into the Bio-Titan's mouth. The explosions lit up space like miniature suns. "Wu Jin, no." Admiral Taemin watched helplessly as his friend sacrificed himself. The Bio-Titan was dying, but it was not dead yet. In its death throes, it lashed out with massive tentacles, crushing human ships. Its bioweapons fired randomly, hitting friend and foe alike. Commander Yejin's cruiser was caught by one of the tentacles. The massive appendage squeezed her ship like a toy. "Hull breach on all decks," her damage control officer reported. "We're losing atmosphere." "Keep firing," Yejin ordered, even as her ship was being crushed. "Don't let that thing recover." Admiral Taemin watched his fleet being destroyed around him. Half his ships were gone. Thousands of humans had died in the last hour. But the Bio-Titan was finally still. The creature that could have consumed an entire planet was dead. The surviving Korthak ships fled in panic. They had never seen their ultimate weapon defeated. The humans had done the impossible through sheer determination and willingness to sacrifice everything for their friends. "Status report," Taemin requested, though he dreaded the answer. "Fleet strength down to 40%, his tactical officer reported. "We've lost Captain Jin Ho, Supply Officer Wu Jin, and over half our fighter squadrons." Admiral Taemin closed his eyes for a moment, mourning his fallen friends. Then he opened them and looked at Ethros Prime, still beautiful and blue in the distance. "And the Veltari?" "Safe, sir. 8 billion lives saved." It had been the costliest battle in human history, but they had. Admiral Taemin stood in his command center, watching the tactical display with cold eyes. The first day of battle had shown him something important. The Korthaks fought like predators who had never faced real resistance. They expected their enemies to break and run when faced with superior numbers. They had never met humans. "New orders for all ships," Taemin announced to his fleet commanders. "We're implementing Deathworld Doctrine." The term sent shivers through the human fleet. Deathworld Doctrine was humanity's most brutal military strategy. It was based on the simple fact that humans had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. Earth had taught humanity to fight dirty, to never give up, and to use every advantage possible. Commander Yejin understood immediately. "Asymmetric warfare, sir?" "Exactly," Taemin confirmed. "The Korthaks expect honorable combat between fleets. They've never faced an enemy that fights like Earth animals." Captain Jin Ho's voice crackled through the communication system. "What are your orders, Admiral?" "We stop fighting like a fleet," Taemin replied. "We start fighting like a pack of wolves." The change was immediate. Instead of maintaining formation and trading shots with the enemy, human ships scattered across the battlefield. They began hunting in small groups, using hit-and-run tactics that the Korthaks had never encountered. Commander Yejin led the first pack hunt. She took 12 cruisers and hid them among the debris of destroyed Veltari stations. When a group of Korthak ships came to investigate the wreckage, the human vessels emerged from hiding and attacked from all sides at once. "Target their engines first," Yejin ordered. "Cripple them, then finish them." The Korthak ships found themselves surrounded by enemies that had appeared from nowhere. Before they could adapt, half their group was destroyed. The survivors tried to flee, but human ships were faster. "Pack hunt successful," Yejin reported. 12 enemy ships destroyed, 0 human losses. Captain Do-hyun tried a different approach, with his dreadnoughts. Instead of using them as heavy assault ships, he turned them into mobile fortresses. His massive vessels would position themselves near important locations and wait for the enemy to come to them. When Korthak ships approached, they found themselves facing not just the dreadnoughts' guns, but also swarms of fighters and clouds of nuclear mines that Do-hyun had scattered around his position. "Come to Papa," Do-hyun muttered as another Korthak formation fell into his trap. The most shocking change came from Supply Officer Wu Jin. He had turned his cargo ships into weapons of war. Instead of carrying supplies, they now carried specially modified containers filled with nuclear explosives. Wu Jin would pilot these ships directly at enemy formations, pretending to be fleeing civilian vessels. When the Korthaks moved to intercept what they thought was easy prey, the cargo ships would explode like massive bombs. "Suicide cargo ship attack successful," Wu Jin reported calmly after his third such attack. "Enemy battle group destroyed." Chief, Engineer Min Kyung developed even more devious weapons. She created automated drones that looked like debris but were actually packed with explosives. She programmed them to drift toward enemy ships and detonate when they detected Korthak biological signatures. 50 drone mines deployed, Min Kyung announced. They're programmed to hunt anything that smells like Korthak. But the most terrifying human tactic came from the fighter squadrons. Nam Su and Hyewan had developed something that horrified even the Veltari. They called it the kamikaze swarm. When human fighters were too damaged to continue fighting normally, instead of retreating, the pilots would set their ships to autopilot and ram them directly into enemy vessels. The fighters were too small to do much damage normally, but they carried nuclear warheads. "This is Namsu to all damaged fighters," the squadron leader announced during one particularly intense battle. "Remember, a dead human pilot can still kill a living Korthak ship. 12 human fighters, their pilots, either dead or evacuated, screamed toward a Korthak capital ship on suicide runs. The explosions lit up space like a new star. The Korthaks were completely unprepared for this kind of warfare. They had conquered dozens of species, but all of them had fought according to the same basic rules. Fleets met in open space and traded, fire until one side was destroyed or retreated. Humans ignored those rules completely. Dr. Yoonji made the war even worse for the Korthaks when she perfected her biological weapons. Working with samples of Korthak tissue, she developed viruses that specifically targeted their biological ships. "These viruses will make their ships turn against each other," she explained to Admiral Tae-min. "We can load them into standard missiles and fire them like any other weapon." The results were devastating. Korthak ships infected with human-designed viruses would begin attacking their own fleet. The biological components of their vessels would go insane, causing ships to fire randomly, or even consume each other. "Their own ships are eating each other," reported Captain Jin Ho with grim satisfaction. "Dr. Yoonji's bugs are working perfectly." Intelligence Officer Sang Hoon coordinated the most audacious attacks of all. He organized boarding parties. Human soldiers would use small, fast ships to get close to Korthak vessels, then cut their way inside and fight the aliens hand-to-hand. The Korthaks had never faced boarding actions. Their ships were not designed to repel intruders. They had no internal defenses because no species had ever been crazy enough to actually board their vessels during combat. "Boarding Party Alpha has secured the enemy bridge," Sang-hoon reported during one such assault. "They're setting charges now." The human soldiers who volunteered for these missions knew they probably would not survive. Korthak ships were full of biological horrors and toxic atmosphere. But they went anyway, because that was what humans did. For their friends Korthmak, the Korthak fleet commander, watched his perfect war machine fall apart against these impossible humans. They fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They used tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. "What are these creatures?" he demanded of his subordinates. "No species fights like this." His science officer, a creature that was part plant and part machine, had been studying human transmissions. "Lord Korthmak, I have analyzed their communications. They call their homeworld a death world. It appears their entire evolution was shaped by constant warfare." "Impossible," Korthmak snarled. "No world could be that hostile and still produce intelligent life." "The evidence suggests otherwise, Lord. Their planet has extreme weather, deadly predators, toxic plants, and natural disasters that occur regularly. They evolved not just to survive, but to thrive in conditions that would kill most species." Korthmak stared at the tactical display, showing his fleet being torn apart by human pack-hunting tactics. "So we are not fighting a civilized species. We are fighting evolved predators." "Yes, Lord. And they have decided that we are their prey." The battle raged for 3 more days. The Korthaks had superior numbers and more powerful ships, but humans had something the aliens could not understand. They had learned to fight on a world that never showed mercy. Every human tactic was based on Earth's harsh lessons. Pack hunting from wolf behavior, camouflage and ambush tactics from jungle predators, persistence hunting that could chase prey to exhaustion. Even the kamikaze attacks were based on insects that would die to protect their colony. Commander Ye Jin summed it up perfectly during a brief lull in the fighting. "We're not just fighting for the Veltari," she told her crew. "We're showing the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth's friends. We're showing them why humans survived on a death world." The Korthax began to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked beings who were kind and generous to their friends, but absolutely ruthless to their enemies. They had awakened something that the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Tae-min watched as another Korthak formation fell to human pack tactics. His fleet was smaller now, but it was winning. The enemy was learning to fear humans. "Status report," he requested. "Enemy fleet strength down 60%, reported his tactical officer. "Our losses are 30%, but morale is holding strong," Tae-min nodded grimly. The price was high, but they were saving the Veltari. More importantly, they were teaching the galaxy a new lesson. Humans might be newcomers to space, but they brought with them 4 billion years of Earth's most violent evolutionary pressure. The Korthax were about to learn why humans called themselves apex predators. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Veltari system. What they saw made even the veteran officers sick to their stomachs. Ethros Prime burned in the distance. The beautiful blue-green world that had been home to 8 billion peaceful Veltari was surrounded by a cloud of debris. Orbital stations that had taken centuries to build were now twisted metal drifting in space. "My God," whispered Commander Ye Jin from her ship. "What have they done?" Admiral Tae-min studied the tactical display on his bridge. The Korthak fleet was massive, over 500 ships of different sizes, but all sharing the same horrible appearance. They looked like they had been grown instead of built. Organic curves and ridges covered their hulls. Some had tentacles instead of normal engines. "Sir, I'm picking up Veltari signals," reported Communications Officer Hyunwoo. "They're weak, but they're still fighting." "Put them through," Tae-min ordered. The main screen flickered and a Veltari face appeared. It was Velnara, the prime counselor of the Veltari collective. Her people looked like living crystals, beautiful and delicate, but now she looked broken. Her normally bright features were dim with exhaustion and fear. "Admiral Tae-min," she said, her voice shaking. "You came. I was not sure you would receive our message in time." "We received it," Tae-min replied firmly, "and we're here to help. What's your situation?" Velnara's image flickered as explosions rocked her ship. "We have 43 ships remaining from our defense fleet. The Korthaks have been attacking for 6 days. They don't just want to conquer us, they want to consume everything. Our cities, our oceans, even our atmosphere." Dr. Yoon-ji, who was on the bridge studying Korthak ship designs, spoke up. "Counselor, their ships look biological. Are they alive?" "Worse than alive," Velnara answered. "They are hungry. Their weapons eat metal and energy. They have consumed 12 of our orbital habitats completely. Nothing remains but empty space." Captain Jinho's voice came through the fleet communication channel. "Admiral, my destroyers are ready to engage. Just give the word." Tae-min studied the enemy formation. The Korthaks had arranged their ships around Ethros Prime like predators surrounding wounded prey. They were not expecting an attack from behind. "All ships, battle stations," Tae-min announced. "We're going in." The human fleet moved forward, in attack formation. The destroyers led the way, followed by the cruisers and dreadnoughts. Fighter squadrons spread out like a protective net around the larger ships. Captain Do-hyun's dreadnoughts opened fire first. Massive kinetic projectiles screamed across space at incredible speed. They slammed into the nearest Korthak ships with the force of nuclear weapons. "Direct hits," reported the weapons officer. "Enemy ships are..." "Wait, what?" The Korthak ships that had been hit were healing themselves. The organic hulls closed over the damage like wounds sealing shut. Within minutes, they looked like they had never been hit at all. "New plan," Admiral Tae-min announced grimly. "Continuous fire. Don't give them time to heal." The Korthaks finally noticed the human fleet and turned to face this new threat. Their ships moved in ways that made human engineers sick. They twisted and bent like living snakes. Some grew new weapons as they flew. The first Korthak attack was terrifying. Instead of normal projectiles, they fired living creatures. Biological missiles that looked like giant worms with teeth. These creatures hit human ships and immediately began eating through the hulls. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported damage control on the cruiser Daegu. The thing is still alive and eating our ship. Commander Ye-jin coordinated the cruiser. Response. All ships. Emergency Protocol 7. Vent atmosphere in damaged sections. Freeze those things before they eat us completely. The tactic worked. The biological weapons could not survive in the vacuum of space once they were cut off from their ships. But more were coming. Captain Jin Ho led his destroyers in a daring attack run. Instead of fighting the way other species did, he used human pack-hunting tactics. His 20 ships surrounded one large Korthak vessel and attacked from all directions at once. Focus fire on the same spot, Jin Ho ordered. Don't let it heal. The concentrated firepower worked. The Korthak ship could not heal fast enough to repair damage from 20 different directions. It finally broke apart, spilling strange organic fluids into space. First kill goes to humanity, Jin Ho announced proudly. But the Korthaks were learning, too. They began targeting the human fighters with swarms of smaller creatures. Namsu and Hyewan found themselves flying through clouds of living ammunition that tried to eat their ships. This is insane, Hyewan shouted over the radio as she dodged a creature the size of a bus. How do you fight something that wants to eat you? Namsu had an idea. The same way humans have always fought, we cheat. He led his squadron in a new attack pattern. Instead of trying to fight the biological ammunition directly, they fired conventional missiles into the swarms. The explosions killed hundreds of the creatures at once. Conventional weapons work, Namsu reported. These things evolved to fight energy weapons, not good old-fashioned explosives. Dr. Yunji was frantically analyzing captured biological samples when she made a crucial discovery. Admiral, the Korthak weapons are based on a biological matrix that's vulnerable to Earth viruses. If we can modify our computer viruses, do it, Taemin ordered immediately. Chief Engineer Min Kyung worked with Dr. Yunji to develop biological computer viruses. They loaded them into normal missiles and fired them at Korthak ships. The results were immediate and devastating. Korthak ships began turning on each other as the viruses spread through their biological systems. Ships that had been coordinating perfectly suddenly started firing randomly. Some even began attacking their own fleet. It's working, reported Captain Do-hyun as his dreadnoughts continued their bombardment. Their formation is falling apart. But the Korthaks had one more surprise. Their fleet commander, a creature called Korthmak, appeared on the human communication channels. He was a nightmare made real. Part machine, part living flesh, with too many teeth and eyes that burned with hunger. So, Korthmak spoke in perfect human language. The prey has learned to bite. Interesting. We have consumed 47 species in this galaxy. None fought like you do. Admiral Taemin stepped forward to face the alien commander. We're not like other species. We're humans, and we don't let our friends get eaten. Korthmak laughed, a sound like metal scraping against bone. Friends, we do not understand this concept. There are only hunters and prey. You fight well for prey, but you are still just meat to be consumed. Then come and try to eat us, Taemin replied coldly. The battle intensified. Korthak ships began using new weapons, beams of energy that turned metal into organic material, creatures that could phase through shields, living missiles that learned from each attack. But humans adapted faster than the Korthaks expected. Supply Officer Wu Jin began firing cargo containers full of nuclear mines. The mines looked like debris until they exploded next to enemy ships. Commander Ye Jin developed new tactics on the spot. Her cruisers would pretend to be badly damaged, then attack when Korthak ships came close to finish them off. The Veltari watched in amazement as the humans fought with a ferocity they had never imagined. These were the same gentle beings who had shared medical technology and asked for nothing in return. But in battle, they were something else entirely. They fight like the stories of ancient warriors, Velnara whispered to her aide. Like beings who learned war on a world that tried to kill them every day. The tide of battle began to turn. Human ships were faster and more adaptable than the Korthaks expected. Human tactics were unpredictable. Most importantly, humans refused to give up even when their ships were badly damaged. Captain Jinho's destroyer was missing half its hull, but he kept fighting. Commander Yejin's cruiser was leaking atmosphere, but her guns never stopped firing. Fighter pilots Namsu and Hayawan continued their attacks even when their ships were held together with emergency patches. "This is impossible," Korthmak snarled, as he watched his perfect fleet struggle against these newcomers. "No species fights like this. No species sacrifices so much for others." Admiral Taemin smiled grimly as he watched more Korthak ships fall to human weapons. "That's because you've never met humans before. We don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for our friends, and we never, ever give up." The first battle was far from over, but already the galaxy was learning something new. Humanity had arrived, and the rules of war would never be the same again. The Sol system had never seen anything like it. Ships arrived from every corner of human space, creating the largest gathering of military vessels in history. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Incheon, watching as the Armada took shape around him. Captain Jinho brought his destroyer squadron in first. 20 sleek ships that moved like sharks through space. Jinho was young for a captain, but he had proven himself in the asteroid belt conflicts. His ships were fast and deadly, perfect for hit-and-run attacks. "Admiral, the Busan Thunder reporting for duty," Jinho said over the communication channel. His voice was calm, but Taemin could hear the excitement underneath. This would be the biggest fight any of them had ever seen. "Welcome to the party, Captain," Taemin replied. "Take position in Formation 7. Commander Yejin arrived next with her heavy cruisers. 50 massive ships designed to take punishment and dish it out. The Sol's Might led the formation, its hull scarred from previous battles but still strong. Yejin was known throughout the fleet as someone who never backed down from a fight. "My ships are ready, Admiral," she reported. "We have full ammunition, loads and enough supplies for 6 months of combat." Captain Dohyun commanded the dreadnoughts, the biggest and most powerful ships humanity had ever built. 15 floating fortresses that could crack planets if needed. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Dohyun himself was a giant of a man, as tough as the ships he commanded. "The heavy squadron is in position," Dohyun announced. "These Korthaks are about to learn why you don't mess with human friends." But it was not just the big ships that mattered. Thousands of fighter craft swarmed around the capital ships like angry bees. The pilots were the best humanity had to offer. Namsu and Hayawan led the fighter squadrons. They had been rivals in training, always competing to see who was the better pilot. Now they would fight side by side. "Fighter Wings Alpha through Zulu, ready for action," Namsu reported. His fighter, painted with the symbols of his home colony, gleamed under the distant sun. "Beta Wing standing by," Hayawan added. Her ship was smaller than Namsu's, but faster. She preferred speed over firepower. "We will clear the sky for the big ships." Supply Officer Wu Jin had the hardest job of all. Keeping 300,000 humans fed, armed, and supplied in deep space was a nightmare. His cargo ships carried everything from food and medicine to nuclear weapons and spare parts. "Logistics train is ready, Admiral," Wu Jin reported. "We have enough supplies for a major engagement plus emergency reserves. If we run out of ammunition, the war is already lost." Chief Engineer Min Kyung worked around the clock making last-minute improvements to the fleet. She had managed to install new shield generators on most of the ships, using technology learned from captured alien vessels. Her teams also upgraded the weapon systems, making them more powerful than ever before. "All ships have been upgraded according to specifications," Min Kyung announced. "The new shields should hold against most energy weapons. I also installed some surprises that the Korthaks are not expecting." Intelligence Officer Sang Hoon briefed the fleet commanders on what they would face. His teams had studied every scrap of information about the Korthaks they could find. What they learned was not encouraging. "The Korthak Empire has conquered 17 star systems in the past year," Sang Hoon explained to the assembled captains. "They use biological weapons that literally eat through enemy hulls. Their ships are grown, not built, making them incredibly tough. They have never been defeated in battle." Captain Jinho leaned forward. "What about their tactics?" Direct assault, Sang-hoon replied. They believe in overwhelming firepower. They surround their targets and pound them into dust. No fancy maneuvers, no tricks, just raw violence. Commander Ye-jin studied the tactical displays. That might work in our favor. We are used to fighting smart, not just hard. The briefing continued for hours. The Korthaks had biological weapons that could turn enemy ships against each other. They used living ammunition that could think and adapt. Their ships could heal damage during battle. How do we fight something like that? Asked one of the younger captains. Admiral Tae-min stood up. The same way humans have always fought. We adapt, we overcome, we refuse to give up. Dr. Yoon-ji had been working with teams of scientists to understand Korthak biology. She had some good news and some bad news. The good news is that their biological systems might be vulnerable to Earth diseases, she explained. The bad news is that their weapons are designed to consume any material they touch. Once they start eating your ship, they don't stop. The fleet took 2 days to fully assemble. Ships continued arriving until the very last moment. Some came from the furthest human colonies, traveling for weeks to join the fight. Others were pulled from patrol duties and rushed to Seoul with minimal supplies. Namsu and Hayawan used the time to train their fighter squadrons. They practiced attack formations and defensive maneuvers. The pilots were nervous. Most of them had never fought aliens before. Remember, Namsu told his pilots, we are not just fighting for humanity. We are fighting for the Veltari. They saved our people. Now we save theirs. Hayawan gathered her own squadron. Stick to your wingmen. Watch each other's backs. We go. In together we come home together. Captain Do-hyun tested his dreadnought's weapon systems. The massive guns could fire projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The energy weapons could melt asteroids. He was confident his ships could handle anything the Korthaks had. Let them come, he told his crew. We will show them why humans rule this galaxy. Supply Officer Woo Jin made final checks of the cargo. Manifests. Food for 6 months. Medical supplies for a major battle. Ammunition for the biggest war humanity had ever fought. He also loaded something special that Admiral Tae-min had requested. Nuclear mines. Lots of them. Chief Engineer Min Kyung put finishing touches on her upgrades. She had installed new communication systems that would let the fleet coordinate better. She also added some experimental weapons that she hoped they would not need to use. As the fleet prepared to depart, messages came in from Earth. Families saying goodbye to their children, governments wishing the fleet good luck, scientists offering last-minute advice. One message came directly to Admiral Tae-min from the President of Earth. The whole planet is watching. Bring our people home. Tae-min stood on his bridge looking out at the greatest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 300 ships of war crewed by the best humans could offer. They were heading into unknown space to fight an enemy that had never been defeated. All ships, this is Admiral Tae-min, he announced to the fleet. In 1 hour, we depart for Veltari space. We go to fight the Korthak Empire. They think they can destroy our friends and face no consequences. They are wrong. He paused, thinking of the Veltari who were counting on them. The enemy has superior numbers. They have weapons we don't understand. They have never been beaten. But they have never fought humans before. They have never faced beings who evolved on a death world. They have never met creatures who will die for their friends. The fleet began moving into jump formation. The smaller ships arranged themselves around the larger ones. The fighters took position near their carrier ships. When we arrive at Ethros Prime, we will face the largest alien fleet ever assembled, Tae-min continued. We will be outnumbered 5-1. The odds are against us, but we are human. We don't care about odds. We care about doing what is right. The jump drives began powering up. Soon they would tear a hole in space and travel, faster than light, to reach their friends. The Veltari are waiting for us. They are scared and alone, facing an enemy that wants to destroy everything they have built. But they are not alone anymore. Humanity is coming. The fleet jumped to hyperspace in perfect formation. 300 ships carrying 300,000 humans toward the greatest battle in the history of their species. They were going to save their friends or die trying. In the empty space where the fleet had been, Only a single message beacon remained, broadcasting to Earth. The Armada has departed. Destination, Veltari space. Mission, save our friends. The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Sejong station. Hyunwoo had been watching them for 3 years now, but tonight something felt wrong. He sat at his communication console, listening to the usual background noise of space, radio waves from distant galaxies, the hum of solar winds, and the occasional message from Earthships. Then he heard it. The signal cut through everything else like a knife. It was not human. Hyunwoo knew every human frequency by heart. This was something else entirely. The sound made his skin crawl. It was desperate, pleading, and utterly alien. "So Young, get over here right now," Hyunwoo called to the linguist, across the room. So Young dropped her coffee cup and rushed to his station. She was the best at understanding alien languages in the entire station. If anyone could make sense of this signal, it was her. "What am I looking at?" she asked, putting on her headphones. "Listen." Hyunwoo played the recording again. So Young's face went pale. She had heard many alien communications before, but this was different. This was fear. Pure, raw fear translated into sound waves across the galaxy. "This is Veltari," she whispered. "But they never sound like this. They are always calm and peaceful." The Veltari were humanity's first friends among the stars. 3 years ago, when the Martian colonies were dying from a terrible plague, the Veltari had shared their medical technology. They saved millions of human lives and asked for nothing in return. They were gentle beings who valued life above everything else. So Young worked for 6 hours straight translating the message. Her hands shook as she typed the final words. "Hyunwoo, call Admiral Taemin immediately," she said. "This is bad. Really bad." Admiral Taemin arrived within the hour. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his face from the resource wars on Jupiter. He had seen combat before, but the look on So Young's face worried him. "What do we have?" he asked. So Young cleared her throat and read from her screen. "Emergency distress signal from the Veltari Collective. Ethros Prime under attack by unknown hostile force identified as the Korthak Empire. Our defensive capabilities insufficient. Billions of civilians at risk. Request immediate assistance from any allied forces. We are dying. Please help us." The room fell silent. Dr. Yoonji, the station's alien biology expert, had joined them. She knew the Veltari better than anyone. She had worked with them for years, learning about their incredible medical technology. "The Veltari don't fight," Dr. Yoonji said quietly. "They don't even have real weapons. Their ships are designed for exploration and healing, not war." Admiral Taemin studied the star charts on the wall. Ethros Prime was 12 light-years away. It would take the fastest human ships 2 weeks to get there. That might be too late. "What do we know about these Korthaks?" he asked. Hyunwoo pulled up everything their computers could find. "Very little, sir. They appeared in this sector about 6 months ago. They seem to be some kind of empire that takes over worlds for their resources. No one who has fought them has survived to tell about it." So Young added more details as she translated additional signals. "The Veltari are sending reports as their outer colonies fall. The Korthak ships are huge. They use some kind of biological weapons that eat through metal. They don't try to capture planets. They just strip them clean and move on." Admiral Taemin thought about the debt humanity owed to the Veltari. Without their help, Mars would be a dead world. Millions of humans owed their lives to Veltari medicine. The decision was easy. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them we are mobilizing the fleet. All of it." Dr. Yoonji looked shocked. "Sir, we have never deployed the entire fleet before. Are you sure?" The Admiral's eyes were hard as steel. "The Veltari saved our people when we were dying. Now they need us to save them. We don't abandon our friends." Over the next several hours, more signals came in from Veltari space. Each one was worse than the last. The Korthaks were not just conquering planets. They were destroying them completely. Whole worlds were being turned into lifeless rocks. Hyunwoo intercepted a final transmission from a Veltari scout ship. The pilot's voice was breaking with emotion as he reported seeing the Korthak main fleet approaching Ethros Prime. Over 500 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They will reach the homeworld in 10 days. The scout reported, "We have evacuated what civilians we can, but billions remain. Our defense fleet has only 50 ships. We cannot stop them." So Young translated the pilot's last words before his ship was destroyed. "Tell the humans we are grateful for their friendship. If we do not survive, remember us as we were." Admiral Taman stood up from his chair. His decision was made. He opened a communication channel to every human ship, station, and colony in known space. "This is Admiral Taman of the Terran Defense Force. The Veltari Collective has called for help. They are under attack by a hostile alien empire that threatens to destroy their entire civilization. The Veltari are our allies. They are our friends. When the Martian plague was killing our people, they shared their medicine and saved millions of human lives. Now they need us." He paused, thinking of all the young humans who would answer this call. Many of them would not come home. "I am ordering the largest military mobilization in human history. Every available ship, every soldier, every pilot. We will assemble the greatest fleet humanity has ever created. We will travel to Veltari space, and we will fight these Korthaks. We will fight them, because that is what humans do for their friends." The response was immediate. From Earth, from Mars, from the asteroid mining stations, from the outer colonies, humans began preparing for war. Ships that had been in dry dock for years were hastily repaired. Weapons that had been stored since the last conflict were brought out and cleaned. Young pilots who had only trained in simulations prepared to face real combat. Dr. Yunji worked frantically with her team to gather everything they knew about Veltari technology. If they were going to save the Veltari, they needed to understand how to fight alongside them. "Their ships are beautiful," she explained to Admiral Tamin. "They grow them instead of building them, living metal that can heal itself. But they have no real weapons, they never expected to need them." Hyunwoo continued monitoring the signals from Veltari space. Each report painted a darker picture. The Korthaks were not just violent. They were efficient. They destroyed everything in their path with mechanical precision. So Young discovered something even more disturbing in the intercepted Korthak communications she managed to decode. "Admiral, I don't think they see other species as people. To them, we are just resources to be harvested. They talk about the Veltari the same way we might talk about mining asteroids." Admiral Taman felt cold anger building in his chest. Throughout history, humans had fought many wars. They had fought for territory, for resources, for freedom, for revenge. But this was different. This was a fight for the right of peaceful beings to exist. As he watched the first human ships beginning to assemble near Earth, Admiral Tamin made a promise to himself and to the distant Veltari, who were counting on them. Humanity would not let their friends die alone. The fleet would launch in 48 hours. It would be the largest armada in human history. 300,000 humans heading into space to fight an enemy they had never seen before, to save aliens who had shown them kindness. The Veltari called for help, Admiral Tamin said to his staff as they watched more ships arriving. Deathworlders answer the call.